Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street, a Cardano ADA video today. This isn't one, do you know what, I haven't done a dedicated Cardano video for about 3 years. Crazy. I've been holding Cardano since around 2020, maybe in 2019. I think my buy point was, I don't know, must have been like 8 or 12 cents or something. But it's something that's always been in my portfolio. Taking trades here and there over the last few years, but in this video we are going to just quickly discuss the movement that we've seen in the last week or so. It's been quite staggering actually, and we'll just have a couple of touch points on the chart because a previous video that I did with Cardano in regards to a live stream, which must have been about a year and a half ago, I put some critical fib level points on there, and I was just looking this morning and reverting back to that, so I haven't touched the chart since then, and seen that they are hitting those areas. So we're going to look into that a bit more detail and see where we might be going next, and what to look out for as well. Before we go into a bit more detail, don't forget to smash that subscribe button if you have not done so already. Welcome to the channel if you're new, welcome back if you've been with us for some time. So for the Cardano fans out there, or ADA fans, or ones that are generally interested potentially in adding this to a portfolio, to your portfolio, there's a few key pointers as well that we'll go through on that as well, just to make sure that no one does anything silly. Just really quickly, literally from yesterday, apparently a daily active address surge of nearly 94,000 new accounts on the blockchain of Cardano. Now, this is Brave New Coin, really cool website for latest news and things like that. They do some really good metric data as well. Things like this, it's always quite nice to see the additional statistical approach of, you know, why things are happening the way they are. Now, of course, when people see spikes and things, they jump in, they FOMO, etc. But also on the other side of that, it's just how the ecosystem itself has been growing and being nurtured. Now, Charles Hodgson is a phenomenal person in the industry. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some form of like government level appointment in the US, especially after the Trump win. I think the finance sector is really going to take off, as we've seen with Bitcoin and other areas will over the next sort of 6 to 12 months, especially as we lead up to that financial system turn on in November. I think Cardano will be a big part of that. So for those that don't know Cardano, I have done an intro video to them a few years back. I'll probably do a refresh one in the next coming weeks because, you know, some things evolve, some things have changed, some things have been removed. These guys are very heavily orientated around dApps, or the decentralized application side of things, the smart contracts, but also a load of other areas that they've kind of incorporated over the last few years also. But they've always been renowned for that governance aspect. So when people are utilizing the token, they also have an ability of the voting system within to kind of argue how the network should be used, how rewards should be operated. And I was involved with Cardano originally, just from watching videos of like Cheeky Crypto, so Nick and Chris a few years back. They had a cheeky pool that you could get rewards from the staking aspect, and I've only just recently taken a load out of staking because I knew like 2-3 months ago that we're probably entering a market soon where we may want to take advantage of some of the selling off. I haven't done that just yet. I'm just waiting a bit longer. We'll go into the chart in a second, a bit more detail, as the areas of interest that I'm personally interested in. It really just depends on where you've been buying Cardano, price point wise, and where we are today. But you know, it's a strong blockchain. It's a strong team behind it. I was very fortunate to speak with the team regularly when I was doing a load of work for Paris Blockchain Week earlier in the year and towards the latter part of last year. And there's some big things coming over the coming years. I think those that have been in the space for some time will be fully aware of Cardano and ADA as a token point. And I think the confidence and trust is really kicking back in again, which is really exciting for original investors like myself who kind of rode that storm of it going up significantly a couple of years ago, watching the bear market and then watching it come back again. I would definitely be taking personally from my end advantage of that breakout that we're seeing currently at some point, because I would like to re-enter to Cardano in lower price points as well. So it's very difficult to always get get your head around a lot of that. Hindsight's a great thing, right? To see where the predictions are. But Cardano, in my opinion, is one of the strongest crypto assets out there. Aside from the assets, as an investor, I think it's one of the phenomenal companies in the world. And I wish, I know, I'm sure it will happen anyway. As more ETFs come in and even more availability and regulation comes in of crypto exchanges and things like that, that Cardano would be one of those ones that a lot of businesses or a lot of venture capitalists will be really heavily involved in investing further and further into as it gains more and more traction. So we'll see how that goes over these coming months. I think it's going to have a massive year next year, like many of the other assets also, and certainly one of the original ones, which a lot of people were laughing off because they're just following other token channels. That's fine, but as I said in some other videos that I've done recently, some tokens I just hold for the long term. Yes, I want to take advantage when I can along these trade points, but ultimately a lot of these are for the future. Potentially, arguably, if Cardano was to stabilize around sort of $100 to $200 in the future, I'm talking about like 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years from now, that's a really good stable point for a pension society or fund to be utilizing that. They're not going to go for things that are volatile like this because one, they'll need a substantial amount of power in AI to automate those trades or have a good brokering team that will be on this like 24/7. But I think it's one of those that could really stabilize in the future and be one of those solid sort of share holdings. That's how early the crypto market is, guys. If you look into the future, I'm not talking about becoming a millionaire over the next weekend or whatever, unless you put substantial amounts in. I'm a realist, and I see where all these assets are going, some of these blockchains are going, how long it will actually take for a lot of these to really kick off. In the meantime, you could, of course, play with other ones and put them eventually into assets like this. So there's loads of different ways around looking at this. But to talk quickly about the price point, let's jump straight into that. So let's pull that trade view up. So currently trading around 108. So $1.08. $1.08. Apologies. So we've taken it literally from the 7th of November, only a couple of weeks ago, from 30 cents, guys. 30 cents is now up to $1. So it's phenomenal. Just going to put in the price range bracket so we can just double check that movement. So we literally hit the high, 245% increase in that short period of time. And they say that these tokens are dead. Well, I beg to differ. One thing I wanted to point out, obviously the performance indicators on the right side, you can read those for yourselves. You can see the progress that we've had. But in the last video that I did, which was a live one, I showcased these two fib levels. This is back in 2023. Okay, October 23, so really very much around a year ago. And what have we seen development-wise in that uptake? Well, first and foremost, we've shot through a number of the fib levels. More importantly, on the long-term one, where we've taken one of the low points and the previous all-time high points back up here, which was around about $3.10 or something, is significant. Because that was when the last time we saw the high point here in March 2024, around 75 cents. We've already smashed through that. And we're edging towards very closely. To be honest, we can pretty much call it at 117. So that's very interesting, guys, for two reasons. Because also on the medium level, we're taking some of the lower points and some of the more recent high points, triggering off some of these bigger data areas in the fib levels. You can see that we've had the tracement up to this 111 support line. It's retraced itself slightly under that now. So we could potentially stabilize around this dollar mark for a few days, maybe in a couple of weeks, and potentially push up further. The next target point for me personally to look at is around that sort of 124.25 mark. But the longer slightly period, which is probably where I'll take some profit from those ones that I was buying at sort of the 12-20 cent marks, is at 149, 150 mark on the fib level here. So for the instance and argument sake of this topic here, I'm just going to take that area as a top line, and the bottom. Let's do that again. There we go. To see where we are in a couple of weeks. I'm really interested to see that. And in fact, some double confirmations here. You see this lines up quite nicely, purely from the fact that it's not far off where we had low points here. So this is the newer lower point of 32 rather than down here at 20 cents. it double confirms that area of interest, 126. So maybe I might put a position of selling in when we get nearer to that point. I know we're very close at 115, which is currently here. So that's my area of interest to take some elements of profit, and probably around this market here as well, which aligns nicely here. So I'm going to keep these circles, these wonderful blue circles I've drawn in for the next batch of videos that we do on Cardano. I'm going to keep more focused on this. But back to my point about when I was originally buying, this is just from my perspective, I think it was around about 10 or 12 cents. So I remember quite well in the midst of 2020 when we had the big spike up, if anyone remembers. In March we had the drop down. Oh god, Bitcoin, what was that back then? It must have been like 3,000 or something stupid. But anyway, so I could argue that actually if I was taking some profit, I probably should at some point around here, because I've had a 1,350% increase, which is great. But I know the value of Cardano, and I'm very savvy on like crypto tax and things and how they track that and how they will perceive transactions to be counting towards tax. So I'm very wary of taking, keep buying and selling. I want some longevity in this. So that would definitely be a trigger point. In this actual overall market, could we get to the all-time high? It's definitely possible. I think there's a lot more people, there's a lot more access this time round for 2025 in particular. It's this area of interest for me that we stabilize at the 78/$1 to really push up to the 2 and then the 3. If we can smash through the 3, fantastic. That's where we could potentially start seeing, and this is totally conservative in my opinion, we could potentially see a $5 mark in this next bull run. You think, maybe I'm off my nut here, but actually if you look at the progress that we're making currently, if you look at the low points back in the 2020 crash, which was around sort of 9-10 cents, we have advanced to a new low point in a bear market of around 30-40 cents. We could look at that percentage spectrum or difference in value and actually say we're kind of starting almost a repeated pattern that we saw here, but in a more advanced position, that we could potentially argue calculate maybe in the next video. But that could insinuate that if we were to match that move, that we could definitely potentially get to at least that 439 mark. People always try to push randomly towards the rounded numbers, but I think we got to look at this logically and say, well, actually there's some really interesting breakout points before then, as I've said just a minute ago, back at these areas. But that is a really defining area for sure. One here at 234, which matches up nicely with this, and also matches up with this prime area here. So I'm thinking further ahead. It could happen in weeks, guys. Just the way the market goes sometimes. It could happen in months. It could happen next year sometime or the year after. Who knows? But I'm getting quite excited about this progression of the markets. But I'm also being wary in the sense that at the moment, the RSI is at the bottom left. 14 days showing 90, 20 days showing 85. These are very top end. So you can anticipate there's got to be at some point in these coming days and weeks some stability format before we can do the next leg up. And it might coincide with the fact that people get paid in about 10 days time, whether it be the end of the month or the beginning of the next month. I think that would be a bit more of a catalyst throughout December, which we've seen in previous markets. When we get to those sort of December points, it does actually get quite interesting and hairy. So let's see how that plays out. But let me know your thoughts about Cardano. They're the conservative approaches that I've got. I always try and be a bit realistic to say that we're not just always going up. We have to also monitor where we are. So if you're new to crypto or you're new to Cardano and you're going, I must jump in before it goes, just do take the aspect in the mind that looking at relative indexes like this do showcase that we're on top ends of things. So the risk is a lot higher at these points in time. We could argue that back in these regions, when it hits back down to 70, that usually shows a bit of a vibration moment in the markets where we could potentially take some advantage again. Me personally, because of my point of Cardano of when I was buying, etc., I'm not going to be buying Cardano in this point in time. Even if someone argued to me, well, you could buy it and it could go up to like $20-$30, well, fantastic. I've already made profit anyway, so you can't get too emotional about these things. But if you're new, I would just be wary of where we are in the markets right now. That's not saying do and don't buy. I'm not a financial advisor or anything like that. This is certainly not advice in that aspect, other than saying just be careful and think about things first. Do more research in the areas that we're currently at, where we have been, where we might potentially get to, and then you can make a bit more of a conservative approach in your mind. So that's a bit of a wrap up of Cardano, guys. Very exciting times. I'm interested to see if we smash through to that next target. So on the video title, for sure, I'd be interested to put in at least that sort of 120-ish mark, 125, 126 mark as the next target point. Let's see if we get to it. It's not far off, but we need to probably see some stability just over this $1 mark first. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next Cardano video. Take care. Bye-bye.